What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time to talk about the third and final studio album by Dr. Dre. It's called Compton, a soundtrack. And of course I wanted to talk about it in general, but also because mainly most people don't believe that my last name is actually Compton. I'm not going to go into super detail here on this record, but I did want to give a general overview just because this is something that I'm enjoying and it's something that I want to recommend to you guys, but I don't necessarily think that I am the best person, I suppose, to be covering an album like this, but I want to give you some general thoughts. Now, we all knew that Dr. Dre's album Detox probably was not coming. His last record came out in 1999, called 2001, so over 15 years have passed. He's put out a few singles like Kush, and of course the great I Need a Doctor featuring Skylar Grey, and one of Eminem's best performances in a very long time, probably one of his best of the 2010s decade, but I think we all had like this feeling that that album maybe just wasn't coming. Here, he announces this new record on his show on Beats One, The Pharmacy, talking about this new album for the N.W.A. movie that's coming out based on their rise to fame, kind of the lives of Dr. Dre, Eazy-E. I don't think that he's putting out this record just to go along with the whole Compton N.W.A. movie, Straight Outta Compton, that's coming out very, very soon. I think that it was because he wanted to say something one final time, and he brought a lot of friends on to do it. Now, in the past, he has had a lot of collaborators, and of course some ghostwriters. He's notorious for having a ghostwriter do the majority of his work. Snoop has written songs for him, a lot of other up-and-coming rappers. I think even Eminem has contributed to some of his verses, but that's something that Dre is very open about, and I think that that's something that other rappers seem to struggle with. There's obviously the whole Meek Mill and Drake feud going on right now that's in the public spotlight just because Meek Mill is calling out Drake for potentially having a ghostwriter. I'm not sure what's going on there. If he does, that's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just like open up to it, because people like Dre still have great flows, a great cadence on the track, but they're very open to saying, hey, I wasn't the one that wrote this, but I still have control over what comes out of my mouth. I give you the idea of what I want this song to be, and then you kind of make it happen and shape it up for me. Now, I was a little bit hesitant to see so many names here on this record. I was hoping we would get a little bit more of Dre, but actually going into this thing, there are some great guest features here. The Game kills it with one of his best verses in a long time. Eminem, his former protege, and of course someone who is still kind of like a lifelong friend to him, comes in with his best verse in a very long time. I think that it's the best that I've seen him since probably some of his stuff on the Marshall Mathers LP 2. He's put out some lackluster singles in the past couple of years, especially that stuff for that Southpaw movie, which was just abysmal. Exhibit comes in and kills it on a track, and of course it's great to see former N.W.A. member Ice Cube come in and deliver a really solid verse, definitely giving it more of that West Coast flavor that I think a lot of this record was lacking, and a lot of people are coming down hard on it. At least the fans are. I don't think the critics necessarily are, just from what I've seen in the general headlines and that sort of thing, because I haven't actually read or watched any reviews on this yet, just because I didn't want it to influence my opinion in any way. But I see that a lot of fans are kind of commenting and saying that, hey, there's this West Coast vibe, this gangster rap feel that just isn't here. It's lacking on this record, and I think that they're in their 50s now. Of course, Dr. Dre is. Some of these other rappers are in their 40s, like Eminem, and of course I believe The Game is as well, and they're not going to be putting out the same material and talking about the same things that they were in their 20s and even their 30s. At this point, I think it's more about the lifestyle that they've seen, reflecting on it, kind of the memories and the struggles with drugs, hunger, the gangster lifestyle, just all the violence that they've seen in the past and how they've grown and learned from it. And of course, at the end of the day, this album is all about reflecting on the city of Compton, the city that raised these individuals. It was great to see Snoop Dogg get aggressive on a track on Satisficiton, one of my favorite songs on this LP. It's one of those tracks that just sees him calling out a lot of people. It's the ultimate shots fired styled song. He's talking about pressures from record labels, having him hop on so many tracks, and that is something that I've seen over the years. Snoop Dogg's hopped on a lot of bad songs and given a lot of bad features, but this year I've seen him being pretty damn impressive, especially his verse on To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. On this record, you can expect to hear some great verses from some artists that you might not know anything about. There was a lot of names that I had to Google, being honest, because I didn't recognize the majority of these people, but there were tracks on there that I was like, holy shit, this kind of blew me away. Animals, featuring Anderson .Paak and of course Dr. Dre himself, was a really interesting portrayal of how the media media sees blacks, still to this day, they'll play it up like, you know, there's just tension and aggression. They want to push the riots. It's like they're feeding the frenzy, and they only turn the cameras on whenever things go south. Of course, there's quality stuff from people with already established names, including Dre himself. Talking to My Diary was a great outro for this record. I loved kind of seeing him just kind of close things out, seal the deal with a solo track all by himself, and I have a feeling he wrote the majority of that one himself. King Kunta, aka Kendrick Lamar, drops multiple hot verses on this thing, especially on the tracks Deep Water and Darkside, two particularly striking tracks on this album. And of course you've got John Connor, a name that I wasn't exactly super familiar with before listening to this album. Definitely came in, and he had some great productions on the track that he was featured on. I really like this album in general in terms of its production choices. Dre himself handling a lot of it. I believe DJ Dahi and a couple of other people, big names in the production world, just came together and took a nice blend of modern hip-hop stylings and then some of your more classical production that you would maybe hear on something like To Pimp a Butterfly. I've seen that other MCs, a lot of other rappers are kind of borrowing from those elements, not to say that they're ripping off Kendrick Lamar, but at the same time I see a lot of people gravitating towards those more soulful approaches, and I kind of like that. I'm really enjoying Medicine Man. Like I mentioned, of course, Eminem breaking out with one of his best features that he's done in quite a while, a much more aggressive track, and at least in terms of his vocal performance and his rapping ability on this one, he's mixing it up, something that he hasn't been doing. He's just been pumping out the same track over and over again for the past couple of years, at least in terms of singles. I feel like there was some good stuff on the Marshall Mathers LP too, but in terms of the single choices, I wasn't connecting on any level. But Medicine Man, along with Candace Pillay, Anderson .Paak, and Dre himself, just a killer tune. It's All On Me is another one that I wanted to highlight just because I'm loving that track. Of course, Dre on it, and BJ the Chicago Kid, someone that you might recognize from the most recent Joey Badass album. I believe it was his debut studio record at least. Great to see him on this record. Dre got a lot of great names, but I'm going to cut myself off here. Like I said, I didn't really want to get too in-depth and try to analyze something that I may never fully understand, at least in terms of a lot of the lyrical content here, but I can definitely appreciate what was being said, what was gone for in terms of the production choices and that sort of thing, and I think it's a really solid soundtrack. Not just a soundtrack for a movie though, but more of a soundtrack for like a movement or for the city in general, and I think that a lot of these songs are going to serve as anthems and something that just really rallies people together and pulls people together. So overall, for me personally, I'm feeling a 4 for Compton. Like I said, I'm not loving every single track on this thing, but I really appreciate the effort and the talent that is showcased here on this latest and of course final studio album by Dr. Dre. If you've heard it, let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. Maybe smash that like button while you're at it and subscribe to the channel, because friends don't let friends go unsubscribed. You can click right here or right here to go to either my second channel or to the last review that I did. Other than that, I'll see you very soon right here on the ARTV.